Well, right about now, my plane should have landed, and I'm coming close to the end of my holidays. Boo. But I'm kind of excited to get back. But today is another rebroadcast, and I'm not going that far back into my videos. It was only a few weeks ago where I talked about our Facebook and YouTube being a blessing to the church. And I picked this one because of the vaccine passports that are coming out shortly or should be soon. And in this video, we looked at Revelation 13. And the purpose behind it at the time was all of these videos that are being taken down by Facebook and YouTube, they're being fact-checked, you could say, other aspects in that nature. But that isn't what I want you to pay attention to today. What I want you to pay special attention to is Revelation 13. And as I talk about it, I don't get down to the part where they talk about the mark of the beast, but I talk about everything that happens before that moment. So what I'm about to say, listen up, as we're about to dive into Revelation 13 soon. Everything that is happening up to this point doesn't mean the vaccine passport is the mark of the beast. There's so many other things that have to happen first. What it does reveal to us, and what I will agree with, is that it certainly demonstrates to us how this could happen. But the vaccine passports are not the mark of the beast. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this rebroadcast. I will be seeing a lot of you soon, and I look forward to just diving into studying the scriptures with you on a biblically balanced viewpoint. And allow me to use the conspiracy theory that this pandemic is setting up a new world order. Nothing new about this. Much like we have gone through many theories throughout history, as to what is the mark of the beast. We have this new world order theory that, it probably was popularized or made popular by the Left Behind series. But reality is the theory is very old. But let's be clear about this. The Bible does not use the phrase one world government. It does not use the phrase one world currency. It does, however, lead us into this idea that under the rule of an antichrist, but the word antichrist isn't mentioned in the book of Revelation. I don't know if you knew that. In fact, it's only mentioned 3 times, and all 3 times it is in 1st and 2nd John. 1 John 2:18 I'm going to use as the example here, where it says, "Dear children, it is the last hour. The Antichrist is coming, just as you have heard. And even now, many Antichrists have come. This is how you know that it is the last hour." And so right now I just want to bring up Revelation 13 as we're beginning to talk about this. And here we begin to go down the bunny hole of this theory. The beast referred to in Revelation 1:3, as we see it up here, becomes the so-called Antichrist. We combine this image, if we were to dive deep into the image of the beast in Daniel 7, and we come to this very convincing idea. But here, verse 2 describes him as a ruler with great authority. His power, we back up a bit, his power and his throne and a great authority. And so many people get the idea that this is a one world government. It doesn't say that, though. It just says he has great authority. Just a vast empire is happening here. And it's given to him, the dragon and the beast, by Satan. And verse 3 and 4, where it goes on, I saw one of his heads as if it had been fatally wounded, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And here's where we need to pay close attention, because if you notice, followed is in italics. And this whole idea of a one world government is somewhat based upon the idea that the whole world followed after the beast. But this isn't necessarily what's happening here. We must take a close look at this because it's in italics. And so I want to take a moment here and view this in a real practical sense. How is this possible that a one world government would form? For example, even when COVID just first happened, we couldn't necessarily agree. Yeah, we agreed that COVID was bad for us in some way, shape, or form, but not everybody could agree on the solution to the problem. There were so many different countries doing different things, and in the extreme sense, you had Sweden, who at first, they didn't even go into a lockdown. Some jumped on the bandwagon to show this as proof that lockdowns don't work and that their numbers were low, but so was their population. And when you compared them to their neighboring countries, Sweden actually wasn't doing well. And then the second wave hit in Sweden, and they then decided to impose a state of an emergency and allow for a nationwide lockdown, which all of a sudden people jumped off the bandwagon. But this demonstrates how people who are supposed to be speaking the truth, especially when it comes to the truth of God's word, we need to be careful. We need to be careful what bandwagons we are jumping on. If one day we're preaching that something is true, but then it's actually proven false, then why would anyone believe us about the truth of God's word? But back to this one world order, which I may change my mind later, but right now this is what I believe. I don't think it's possible, but right here, the italics, followed after the beast. Followed is in italics, and so I'm just going to show you something here. I'm going to quickly jump to the King James Version, and we're looking at verse 3 again right here. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and the world wondered after the beast. No longer is the word followed there. And so I'm like, why? And so I jump to the Blue Letter Bible, the one that I go to when I want to look at the original language. And so here I am already in verse 13. I've set all of this up just to kind of show you quickly what I see in the original language. But the whole earth was amazed and followed, but there's nothing there. There's no Strongs, there's no translation, there's nothing. Nothing is there. It's because it wasn't there in the original language. It didn't exist. It was kind of added in a sense to kind of help the language kind of move forward. It was kind of there just to kind of do a demonstration. But here's what we need to realize with the book of Revelation. It's had one of the rockiest of translations from the original language to English. Scholars do their best with this book. But so much is still unknown about it, and yet a new world order theory has emerged based upon the idea that the whole world follows the beast. But that isn't what the original language says. It simply says marvel. Now, I can marvel at Niagara Falls, but I'm not worshiping it. I can marvel at a magician and not worship him. So I'm pretty sure if the beast or the Antichrist arose and I saw a fatal wound being healed, I could marvel. That would be amazing. But I don't need to worship him. And so does the whole world worship this Antichrist? I don't see any evidence of this. And now, feel free to put your comments in there. Prove me wrong. Let's discuss this. Change my mind. I see where he has great authority. And if we went on, we would also notice that there would be some sort of universal system of buying and selling. And we have this theory of this one currency. But what if John was seeing somebody making purchases with an Apple Watch? And he wouldn't understand that we still have various currencies. This doesn't mean we have to have one currency. It doesn't mean we have to have a one world government. Nor can we draw the conclusions that all of this will happen. It's all speculation. And this is where I think the Facebook and YouTube overlords are actually helping us as Christians, because right now, these end time theories are being mixed with COVID conspiracies, COVID theories, and the government wants to, censor it, you could say, and not even the government. Yes, the government wants their truth to get out. I'll admit that much. And yes, they may have gone to Facebook and YouTube and said, can you help us out? That's a possibility. And you could probably find that somewhere to back that theory up. And so Facebook and YouTube have decided to go with the common mainstream truth. Is it absolutely true? I don't know. But how many more times do we want to hear about how current world events are right now fulfilling biblical prophecy? Then to discover it was wrong. The world doesn't need to hear anything more about false prophecy, and we're not called to argue with one another. We can discuss it, but we're not called to argue with one another. But here we are for the world to read and see how we're arguing. In my opinion, we are actually conforming to the pattern of this world. Instead of simply loving others, we are another voice. We're crying for our rights. And therefore, I say thank you. If you haven't already taken this down, thank you to Facebook and YouTube overlords for censoring us. Maybe you are working for God in the sense that we need to hear much less about our predictions and our accusations, and instead learn to do our part to show Christ-like behavior in this world.